Pentacon, not Pentagon, Pentacon. That's right, this week we're talking about that German company made up of a bunch of other companies that they ended up calling Pentacon. So, stay tuned. Let's talk a little bit more about these babies. All right, see ya.
Here I am, Vietnam. Rain is always coming down.
This is Camera Talk with Dr. Scott. All right, what are we looking at this week? We have a company called Pentacon, not Pentagon, you know, the military, USA, stuff like that. Pentacon. Now, Pentacon, German company, kind of got an interesting story with it. You know, they, first came into being in the late, actually early 60s, almost mid-60s, 1964. Is when Pentacon was first created, and it was actually merged with a number of other smaller companies. And this was in 1964, Dresden, Germany. Was derived from, you know, a combination of two other cameras, Pentaprism and Contax, and you may have heard of either one of those. Contax, of course, is a famous brand that's been around for quite a while, but the Pentaprism you may not have heard of. But you take the Penta and Contax and Pentacon put together, so that's where the name came from, anyway. And in my little collection here, I've got actually 3 Pentacon lenses and one older lens, which is again one of the merger companies that became Pentacon, and this is Meyer-Optik Görlitz. And as I said, a lot of these are old Meyer-Optik Görlitz lenses, and they were just rebranded into Pentacon after the mergers all came together. Now in 1968,
and love and harmony in the summer of love. Oh.
When they merged with Meyer-Optik Görlitz, they focused primarily on Praktica, and Exacta SLR lenses. And as you remember from an earlier episode of Camera Talk, I introduced to you TLR, which is twins lens reflex cameras, which, you know, is up on my shelf. There is a rolly cord camera that I have, where it had 2 lenses, one for focusing, one for taking the picture. And SLR, which is a single lens reflex camera, is kind of the idea, even though this is a mirrorless camera, but the idea of a DSLR with having a single lens, attributing to both the focus as well as taking the picture. But anyway, again, once they merged into one company in 1991. Oh, sorry, jumping ahead before that, 1985. Pentacon then merged again with kind of what was the leftovers of Carl Zeiss Jena in East Germany. So again, they all kind of merged together and became Pentacon. Now in 1991,
Everything I do it for you.
when the wall came crumbling down and East and West Germany united into one, Pentacon kind of began phasing out their production. And soon they were up for sale, and an investor jumped in there and put some money into it and split up the company into three. The Praktica, the Exacta, and Schneider Dresden is another. So a three-way manufacturing facility anyway. And then, long story short, all the way to 2015, they finally closed the doors, and that was the end of that. No more Pentacon, no more Praktica, Exacta, or Schneider Dresden. So that's the history of Pentacon, and now I'm going to go through, you know, each one of the lenses that I have personally in my collection, and starting off with one that's on my Sony A7R II. I have a 50 millimeter Pentacon Auto 50 millimeter 1.8, and it's multi-coating, as you see written around the lens cover here, or lens plate. This is a famous, you know, a famous lens for its a combination of sharpness as well as the out of focus background, the quality of that out of focus background, otherwise known as the bokeh. Now this lens, actually, it's a M42, which is a screw mount.
Hey, screw you!
If you remember from my earlier videos. So this is a screw mount M42 to NEX adapter on here, so that you can use these older lenses for the purposes of putting on a mirrorless camera. So I have, you know, this is from the late 60s, early 70s. Some of these are a little earlier, like this one's in 1960, 61. But anyway, the you know, the quality of these lenses is typical German construction. Just like Carl Zeiss or any of the others, it's well made. It's all metal construction. It's you know, it's a great quality lens, and you know, 50 millimeter 1.8. It is six element design in 4 groups. It has 6 aperture blades, which, you know, you may wonder how does that create such great bokeh, but it does, you know, because of the optical formula put together, creates quite a nice bokeh. Its close focus distance is 33 centimeters, and its predecessor, which again was Meyer-Optik Görlitz, it was called the Oriton. And you know, once it became a Pentacon, they just, you know, called it a Pentacon 50 millimeter 1.8, and that's as simple as it gets. So as usual, I'm going to take a picture of my Canon M50, which is filming this video at the moment, and as well as I'm going to include some pictures I took this morning of my world famous model son, Dylan McDonald, who just turned 24 weeks 2 days ago, and so he's 6 months, and you may hear him every now and then, a little scream or a cry out there, but he's just letting us know that he's here. So anyway, let me get a picture of this, and then we'll move on down the family line here. So as usual, I will use my magnifier to zip right in, and of course this is wide open at 1.8. Always shoot these at open 1.8 just to show you 1, 2, 3 what that could look like through the lens of through a Sony A7R II. So as I said, I'm going to include some pictures of Dylan, and I'll cut those in right now. let's move on to my next 50 millimeter, which is the, it's actually not a Pentacon, but it's a Meyer-Optik Görlitz before it got switched to Pentacon. And this was, this is a 50 millimeter, and you know, look at the size of that. You know, isn't that the cutest little thing you ever did see?
That's what she said.
You know, this is a 50 millimeter Trioplan 2.9, and it's you know, again, it's a tiny little aluminum. Was polished, but it's a, you know, 1961-ish lens, so it's got a little wear and tear on there. But what it is famous for is its bubble. Soap bubble bokeh, and you know, I'll show you some of those too, as well as some pictures of Dylan. But as I said, this was a different. This is before they switched everything to M42 mount. So this was an Exacta mount here. So I'll load that onto my Exacta-NEX adapter, and the adapter itself is twice as big as the lens, so it kind of looks a little ridiculous on there for the size of things, but still, I'm going to give you a sample shot here, wide open at f2.9. Now, before I take the shot, of course, a little bit about the lens too. As I said, it was the early 1960s, and it's a Trioplan Trio 3, so it's a triplet. 3 elements in 3 groups, and its close focus distance isn't quite like this one's a little longer. It's 60 centimeters, so it's almost kind of double the close focus distance of this baby here. But anyway, it's super small. I mean, it's only 80 grams, you know, light. It's very light. So anyway, let me get the shot here for you. As I said, a quickie picture of my 15 to 45 lens here. 1, 2, 3. You know, you see also my background notes behind here as on my whiteboard has all my notes for what we're talking about today. All right, so let me show you some sample shots of Dylan doing his thing, and also include some shots to kind of give you an overview generally of what the soap bubble bokeh can be produced with this little baby here. All right, so let's look at those right now. So with that said and done and out of the way, put that one aside. Now moving on down the line here, I have to unscrew my 50 millimeter and take the bottom cap off of this one. I'll replace it back on here. Again, these screw mounts are very convenient, very easy to come and go, as opposed to all the bayonet mounts and whatnot, which can be a little fussy, like the FD mount for the Canon. That's like I say, a little on the fussy side. So this here is my 30 millimeter Pentacon 30 millimeter f3.5. It's a little newer design than these ones. You know, it's a 70s child. And it goes from 3.5 to f22, as opposed to some of these guys. Actually, this got f22 also. This one's only f16. But anyway, it's 30 millimeter 3.5, and again, it's a reproduction of the Meyer-Optik Görlitz Lidith. Was the name of the lens that used to be made in this configuration, It's 5 elements in 5 groups, 10 aperture blades. So it's again got some nice bokeh. Its minimum focus distance is 35 centimeters. And I'm going to give you a shot of example here. Got wide open at 35. And let me zoom in on the end of my 15 to 45. 1, 2, 3. Now it's definitely not as sharp as these guys, you know, at the close focus distance, but it's you know, it's only 30 millimeter field of view, so it's a wide angle, obviously similar to it's in between the 28 and the 35, so it's it covers a broader broader field of view. So again, let me give you some samples of Mr. Dillon using this lens, and you know, some other samples I may have in my collection. So let's look at that right now. To round off our little presentation for today, I'm moving on to another pretty lens that
I feel pretty.
Pentacon made here, and it is, hang on while I do some unscrewing. It's not very romantic, but it gets the job done. All right. So this is the Pentacon 135 millimeter f2.8, and again, it's made in the German Democratic Republic.
I see nothing.
Back in the day, before the unification happened. All right, now this is again a 135. So it's, you know, it's a big, you know, it's a longer lens.
That's what he said.
Than these guys. It's great for portraiture. It's very heavy. You know, it's 470 grams. So it's quite hefty. When you're ticked off, that's your subject for moving around too much. You can take it off and just wing it at them. Now, I don't suggest you do that. You might damage the lens. Anyway, so it's 5 elements in 4 groups, 15 aperture blades. So again, it's got some sweet out of focus background, and the quality of the bokeh is very nice. As typical for a 135 millimeter, its minimum focus distance is 1.5 meters. So yeah, probably gonna have to back this up a tad to get that in focus. But let me make sure I got 2.8 open here. Let me focus in on the end of the lens. Oh yes, much sharper than the 30 millimeter, that's for sure. 1, 2, 3. And the out of focus background is much focusier, or out of focusier, just to make up some bad grammar. But the bokeh is very nice on this. You know, 15 aperture blades, even though that's wide open, it's still, you know, with 15 blades, the iris is nice and circular, and you know, it's a sweet lens. I suggest anyone who's a portrait shooter get one of these. You know, whether it's on eBay or KEH or on Amazon or other, you know, maybe your Facebook marketplace. You can find these all over the place. But it's a great lens. And again, it's an M42 screw mount, so can't ask for anything easier to deal with as far as adapting goes. Now, of course, this is all for mirrorless. You know, the DSLRs with the mirror and whatnot always have, you know, the questionable, is it going to smack my mirror or not? You know, or is the mirror going to smack the end of my lens, I should say.
Striker, 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 striker. Striker.
But mirrorless doesn't have that issue, so just about anything is adapted to a mirrorless camera. So let me show you some shots of Mr. Dylan, and then we'll close it up from there. That's my Pentacon story, and I'm sticking to it. So, you know, as usual, you know, this is Camera Talk with Dr. Scott, and this is brought to you by Modesty Photography, and we're here to introduce you to things like vintage lenses. You know, the price tags on these are not super expensive compared to modern lenses. You know, I'll post the price of these things up here for you. But again, they're fantastic lenses. You know, all the vintage lenses that I introduced to you on Camera Talk are all fantastic lenses for what you get, your bang for the buck, so to speak. Now, you know, with that said, that kind of pretty much wraps up, you know, what I wanted to talk to you this week about on Camera Talk. So Pentacon, German company. It was East German, and then when unification happened, it got split up into other companies at the time, but still German quality. You know, it's like a BMW or a Mercedes or anything else. It's very, very nice. So with that said, remember to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Hit that like button, please. Help my channel get exposed to the masses. You know, kind of exposure. And you know, again, you belong here. You belong here. Remember that. And that's pretty much all I've got for you. So stay tuned for a week or so after this, and I'll get back to you with another episode of Camera Talk. Who knows what we're going to talk about, whether it's lenses or equipment or just a topic in general. But you know, thanks for dropping by. Thanks for supporting my channel, and I look forward to bringing more for you. So you have yourself a great week and a great weekend.
Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
If you need some software, it's down below the link. You'll save $10. So we'll see you next week. Stay safe out there. Stay COVID-free. And this was Dr. Scott, and this was Camera Talk. Bye-bye.
Here I am, Vietnam. Rain is always